Helldivers 2 cooks when it comes to the armor. If you've been a fan of this game or have played this game since launch, like I have, I really enjoy how armor is implemented to the game. I enjoy the aesthetics, I really enjoy the lore, and I like how it's a core progression system in the game. However, Helldivers, including myself, have faced a dilemma. You want to wear a certain armor, but it doesn't have the armor passive that you want. Especially since the Halo ODST Warbond was recently launched, a lot of players, including myself, love the aesthetic. We love the nostalgia. The armor is really special to me. But the armor passive isn't my playstyle, and it doesn't really fit what I particularly want to do, which is perfectly fine. Not every armor passive should be a generalized armor passive, as some players really enjoy that playstyle. And this is something that many Helldivers have wanted since launch. The community wants a clear solution or even a compromise to this problem, especially since Arrowhead stated they don't want to do armor transmogs, which is understandable, and the reasoning behind that is because the armor that they deliver should give a clear visual indicator of what that armor passive does. However, that's not always the case. I and other players, ever since the game has launched, has noticed that the theme of armor passives, visually at least, has not always been consistent. For example, the servo-assisted armor passive. This is a perfect example of an armor passive that does not follow a visual theme, at least consistently. I believe it's the Polar Warbond. It's called the Winter Warrior. This armor has the servo-assisted armor passive. However, it doesn't have a robot arm or a robot leg, which is what the visual theme of the servo-assisted was, at least initially. And this isn't just one example. There's armor like the Legionnaire that offers the servo-assisted armor passive, but doesn't have the consistent armor passive theme. There's tons of different armor that have many inconsistent visual themes. However, this video isn't necessarily about the inconsistencies, as many people would point out that's a nitpick. It's simply them giving a reasoning behind why they wouldn't do transmogs, and many players pointing out that reasoning isn't that sturdy. And I'll show many different examples, many various examples of why the reason they provided for not having transmogs is simply wrong. However, I'd totally be fine with not having transmogs as long as this door of having armor passives being swappable be open, because why have a transmog when you can have a new system that players would love, that you can just simply swap the armor passive, not having to do a transmog? Because honestly, transmogs, at least in most games, it's like almost like a one-time purchase per the armor set, and Arrowhead does not like microtransactions, and usually transmogs are the epitome of microtransactions. And so I'm glad they said no, even though their reasoning isn't as what it seems. At least I'm sure it was initially. I'm sure initially they wanted to keep the theme consistent, but as you release more armor, the more creative you have to be with that armor. So simply adding a new system that you can swap your armor passives would eliminate many issues that players have, especially in the community that has been in the game for a very long time. So not only would this not be the typical microtransaction like how transmogs usually are in games, Arrowhead wouldn't have to change how they introduce armor or change really any system of the Warbond. Players would still unlock armor through the Warbond, but simply there would just be a new UI that would enable players to collect armor passives as a separate entity from the armor type. And I would totally be fine if armor passives like Democracy Protects is still only swappable on medium armor, as currently you can only wear Democracy Protects on medium armor. So in this new system, they can still keep the restrictions, and I'm sure players, including myself, would totally be fine with that. Personally, this would solve my cosmetic issue that I've been facing, because I like to run the medkit passive on the light armor, and there's only one of that in the game, and the green color to that armor is such an interesting green. I don't know why they would choose that green, but compared to the other medkit passives like medium armor or the heavy armor, which has this much cooler, brighter like green blue. Honestly, also I just want to wear the ODST armor in every single game I play and just choose the armor pass that I want, because how cool would that be, right? I'm sure so many people would love that. So hopefully we get to see that in the future. And another issue I want to address in this video is going to be heavy armor and how the community feels about heavy armor. So this will be the more, I guess, experimental suggestion, critique, or the more controversial part of the video as I talk about heavy armor. Before I go any further, I want to say that I love playing heavy armor in games. I would usually play heavy armor in like Skyrim or an Elden Ring. I don't know, there's just something about heavy armor. I enjoy the trade-off, and usually the armor to me looks visually cooler than, for example, light armor, because you're just wearing more armor and it offers usually a good trade-off. It just depends on your build, but I think heavy armor is really cool. I enjoy the playstyle. I mean, come on, heavy armor in Elden Ring. I mean, with some of the armor that you have, how can you not love heavy armor? Even in Helldivers 2, I visually love heavy armor. I love how at least certain armor that I have obtained in Helldivers fit the, I guess, usual type of heavy armor, and it's just so much armor. It just looks visually cooler to me. However, in Helldivers, it's really hard to feel like an absolute unit. Usually in games, if you have heavy armor, you have massive AoE attacks. You can dual wield a large sword. You know, there's ways to deal with being swarmed, or you have mobility attacks. Many Helldivers in the community feel the same way as I do when it comes to heavy armor, is that the trade-off to being slow isn't that worth it when most attacks are fatal, and especially on certain factions like Illuminates, it can just aimbot one-shot headshot you. However, I'm not saying heavy armor is completely useless. I'm just saying it could be better, as most people pair heavy armor with the explosive mitigation. I think it reduces explosive damage by 50%. That one cooks. Many people, including myself, has used that against automatons, has used that against the Illuminate, and non-direct hits. It does a great job mitigating that damage. However, it's when it is a direct hit, oftentimes you're just straight up cooked. So Arrowhead has many options to choose from on how to buff heavy armor. However, I think a more fun approach and a more visually telling approach would be to make the armor passive stronger for heavy armor. Simply making the armor passive stronger would make heavy armor feel that much more powerful without just simply adding more health. And I think that would be healthier for the game in the long run, as I think it's totally fine that enemies do lethal damage in all difficulties. Like, they can one-shot you in, you know, level 1, and also they're definitely going to one-shot you in level 10. So the light armor medkit passive and the heavy armor with that same passive, it logically makes sense why the heavy armor would be able to carry more stims and maybe have a longer stim duration. The numbers can be tweaked, as this is just an idea. I'm kind of just brainstorming here, but maybe, for example, the light armor stays exactly the same. The medium armor, instead of it being an additional 2 stims, actually, it could stay an additional 2 stims, but maybe for medium armor, it extends the duration to 2.5 seconds instead of 2 seconds. And then heavy armor, we do an additional 3 stims, and then maybe extend the stim duration to maybe 3 seconds, right? So we go from light armor having 2 stims, additional stim duration by 2, all the way to heavy where it is 3 stims and an additional stim duration by 3. Another great example of this is the Devastator armor and the Eradicator armor. These two armor pieces have the same passive. They have the same explosive resistance stats, 50%. And there's no way this absolute unit of a heavy armor should be having the same resistance stats as the Eradicator, very slimmed down, sleek light armor. So visually, it helps really well when you increase and differentiate the armor passives by making heavy armor have a stronger armor passive. Another experimental idea I had about heavy armor is the elemental resistance armor passives. And I'm thinking about arc resistance, fire resistance, and even gas resistance, and how it makes more sense to me, at least visually, that these armors should have either full immunity or near immunity to those elements, like as a baseline. And it would be even nicer to get maybe even a slight, as another perk, maybe a 20% faster firing rate on the arc stratagem and a faster firing rate on the blitzer. When it comes to gas resistant armor, like the gas resistant heavy armor, it should give near or full immunity, but this time it should give a increased magazine size to the sterilizer. And same thing with fire resistant armor, give full or near immunity and give a maybe 20% increased magazine size to the flamethrower and the torture. And I guess there's no gas equivalent to the torture, like the sterilizer. So maybe even throwing in, like, I don't know, 1 extra grenade or something, that would be kind of fair. So the bottom line is, with my, I guess, experimental critique, it would give a slight buff to medium armor and a substantial buff to heavy armor passive wise, right? And this would further differentiate the armor types and not make them only differentiatable, that was a big word, by just the speed, the stamina, and the health alone, which is like the core stats. Like, there could be more meat on the bone with the armor types. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts about armor and Helldivers and how I personally would fix armor, going through the passive and the different armor types. You can, again, totally wear heavy armor. I wear heavy armor too. I just think that it could simply be improved upon. This is just a critique. If you guys have any, I guess, thoughts, or you can totally give me your opinion in the comments. Am I taking crazy pills here, or is there some truth to what I'm saying? Because I don't know, I've been playing this game since launch. I love the game. It's a live service game. It can be improved upon. I know Arrowhead, the developers, have a lot on their plates, so I understand. I'm not asking for these, I guess, issues or problems, however big or small they might be, to be immediately fixed. So please leave a comment in the description. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a like if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to follow for more Helldivers, Marvel Rivals, gaming content, anime content, you name it. I'm going to be exploring and improving upon my videos. So thank you for making it to the end of the video, and I'll see you guys